Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another one of our Fireside chats. These are put on monthly by Foresight. If you haven't been paying attention, you can always check our back catalog on our YouTube channel. All of them are recorded. This session will be recorded for posterity. So if you can try to keep the language clean, that would be appreciated. I would like to encourage everybody, this is supposed to be interactive. This is for your benefit. So as questions come up, put them in the chat. If we can't get to them right away, we will circle back to them, or we can always keep that and shoot some emails around to get you the information you need, right? Again, this is meant to help you. Really excited today about today's topic, cybersecurity. A lot of the time, we're focused on talking to customers and talking to investors and doing that thing, but we have to keep our house in order, you know, all the way from intellectual property to cybersecurity, and that's the topic of today. We've got our fantastic moderator, James Chepyha, who's joined us again to help out our panelists here, Calvin Engen, Dwayne Robinson, and Richard Dsouza, who I will let James introduce in a little bit more depth. Before I do turn it over to James, I will remind everybody, next month, we're going to be talking about structuring for your entry into foreign markets, specifically the United States. We're going to have some speakers who have done that with some companies in the past. I always want to see Foresight companies build big, beautiful billion-dollar businesses, and that's going to require you to probably sell some of your technology or your products into the United States. We have some other great events coming up tomorrow. We have our CRIN and CarbonNext Carbon and Hydrogen Innovation Showcase. So a number of innovators will be pitching there. That's tomorrow, April 13th. You can always check that out on our events page. And then next week, we have our winter cohort demo day. So that's going to be April 20th. You're going to see, I think, 20 odd ventures who participated in our winter cohort telling you their story about their invention, how it's going to make the world a better place. So please do tune in for that as well. Without further ado, I will turn it over to James in the main event.
Thank you, Stephen. Welcome, everybody. Why do I always feel like when Stephen's saying keep the language down, he's just looking at me? So we'll try and make sure that we do that in this case. One point of clarification: if at all possible, if you got questions, instead of putting them in the chat, if you can put them in the Q&A section, we can actually probably get to some of them quicker, and we can answer you directly if you'd like. Otherwise, we'll probably take some of your questions and put them up on and deal with everybody. Now, today's topic is about cybersecurity, but we're taking the approach it's from the hacker's perspective. And what we're really wanting to do, as opposed to talking about how you build your businesses and so forth, this really is about taking an approach of why we're hoping that at the end of this, you're not only a little bit scared, but maybe you know somebody to go talk to about addressing these issues. Cybersecurity is a major issue. It affects every single company. You will all be attacked at some point or another. And what we're wanting to do is introduce you to a number of our gentlemen here that do work with us, and they can actually provide you some background of, well, what is going on? Why are they doing it? How do you what are you going to get out of it? And frankly, how do you protect your business so that you're not at such risk that you may actually lose everything? Because that is an extreme case that I'm sure the guys are going to talk to you about and say what can happen there. Without further ado, I am going to just turn it over and let Calvin, Dwayne, and Richard actually introduce themselves. They do a much better job of telling who they are and what they do than I could possibly do. And we will reconvene at the end. Don't hesitate to put questions, as I said, in the box below so that we can get to them as quick as possible. Over to you guys. Calvin, do you want to start? You're on my top right.
Sure. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Calvin Engen. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for F12. I'm passionate about cybersecurity. And so, you know, at a high level, F12, we're a subscription-based IT service provider. We really focus on that 30 computing users up to 400. And we provide clients with reference architecture on-premise, in the private cloud, or in the public cloud, and really designed to enable and help organizations thrive. And so what we do, me and my team, on a daily basis is really protecting F12 and, more importantly, our clients. keeping their data safe and secure. We do that across about 20,000 end users, over 500 accounts. So I'm looking forward to the presentation, and please put in the questions.
Excellent.
Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Richard Dsouza. I'm the CEO of Cyberclan. We're a Canadian cybersecurity company headquartered in Vancouver, British Columbia. We have a global presence. We provide incident response and other security services to clients across US, Canada, and the UK. My specific background includes areas of ethical hacking, security audits, assessment, mobile security, exploitation, incident response, cyber extortion, dark web, and the list goes on. So anyways, very excited to have you here today, and we're happy to take your questions, and we have a great discussion. So thank you. Dwayne?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Yeah, my name's Dwayne Robinson. I'm the Global Director of the Incident Response team here at Cyberclan. Here with my fearless leader, Richard. My team primarily deals with unfortunate clients once they've been breached 95% of the time. Every now and then we get a call that when something fishy is happening, they'll call us and maybe we can put a stop to it. But unfortunately, these guys move pretty fast, so I see the end result. So we'll get into some storytelling and stuff as we go through the hour here. But I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the invite, for sure, there, James.
Okay, so some questions for you guys. What is it that the hackers are looking to do? What do they want? And how do they get there?
Well, I could take a stab at this one. Really the motives, there's a couple categories. And what we're seeing is there's organized crime syndicates that are just looking to make a profit. And so they're looking at different ways to basically extract money from organizations. There's just angry people that have some skills that can disrupt organizations. One of my favorite are these people called script kiddies. These are typically hobbyists, individuals that are testing their skills, or even researchers that are actually testing their theories across the world on live production environments. And we're seeing issues around that. We see competitors of your organization actually doing espionage against your business. I have a great story to tell about that. And of course, then we have state-backed nation-state actors that are funded by their governments in order to disrupt critical infrastructure. And so those are the players we're up against, and it's a scary world, and we'll definitely share some perspectives here. Dwayne, do you want anything to add there?
No, that you touched on the good topics. I guess the of the stuff that my team sees, I would say probably 90% of it is financially motivated, for sure. We've seen some crazy high ransom demands. Ransomware is the big dog in this space here, at least, like I said, from our experience. I think our current highest running demand is $25 million, which is not an insignificant amount of money for any organization. But yeah, you touched on, and of course, with the state of the world these days, definitely the political landscape is coming up to the forefront, just in the last couple of months, especially. Richard, I don't know if you wanted to weigh in.
Yeah, there's many reasons from my perspective, and you get these questions asked, right? So what do they get from doing this damage, or is it just about money or ego, right? So if we kind of dive deeper, but really try to understand the differences between these various groups. So you have the black hat hackers, right? These groups are known to infiltrate networks, infect systems. Basically, they're the bad guys, right? Generally motivated by monetary gains. And in some cases it's just for fun, right? They range all the way from amateurs to expert cyber criminals, right? And then you have the white hat hackers, right? These are the ethical hackers. Often we have these guys on our team, fully certified, And you'll have businesses and governments that will reach out to us to say, hey, have your guys do a red team engagement against our blue team, right? To identify and exploit the vulnerabilities and really test the security controls we have in place. So there are definitely benefits of having these guys on our team. And then you have the gray hat hackers, right? And these guys are like a hybrid, right? They generally carry out like hacking missions without consent or permission, right? They will find vulnerabilities in your network applications, and at some point they will reach out and demand a compensation in return. And if you do not pay, in some cases, they will exploit those vulnerabilities. So bottom line is hackers will steal for information, right? Information is the new gold. And the idea is to extract this information, this gold, and then that gives them leverage in a ransomware situation, especially Dwayne, in the cases we've seen, they want to bargain and negotiate very effectively. And going back to some of your case where, the client is at a disadvantage at that point. Some hackers want to just disrupt, right? Services. They will not take down your website with various techniques like denial of service attacks. They will, all your external facing systems with ERP systems, perhaps Salesforce and things like that, they can try and disrupt those systems and thus, in some cases, even crash these systems. Other reasons are just to make a point, or if they're interested in making a point, they, in some cases, they seem to feel that they serve a higher purpose, and others are financially motivated, where again they want to encrypt systems and demand ransom. So so that's my take on it.
So are there, everybody thinks about this as being, well, it's always it's the other guy that's going to get it. It's not going to happen to me. Yet when I talk to somebody like NRC and the IRAP group, their experience has been anybody that they have actually funded has been subject to attack. So we're talking about, these aren't just big companies that are getting attacked. This sounds like it's absolutely everybody. Is that what you're seeing? And, are there times when, I'm kind of curious, when you get these attacks, do you actually even know that it's happened, or are they doing things that you may not know about for months or years down the road that could eventually, disrupt, instead of just being a little problem, it now has become a company killing event? Like, what's your thoughts on some of this stuff?
Yeah, so I think, some of the situation is this: most businesses aren't adequately protected or are monitoring sufficiently to know when an attack is happening. And so until they actually, do something that exposes themselves inside your network or inside your business. And so the analogy I would use is, you have your house, you have locks on your doors. And what these nefarious actors are doing is they're trying to get into your house. And so sometimes that house has a locked door. Other times that door is wide open. Other times that person might actually just walk in behind you, or that person, you might have just let them in inadvertently. But now that they're in your house, you don't know it. And so it usually takes around 6 months before we're actually recognizing that's happening. So just think about that. That person's walked into your house, they're sitting on your couch, they're going to your fridge, eating your food, sleeping in your bed. 6 months later, that's a lot of free rent, I would say. And by the time you actually realize that that person is in your house, guess what? It now takes you another 2 months just to get them out of your house, to find them in your house and get them out. And so it's taking far too long for you to actually see the event that's happening. And it's just simply because most organizations don't have the tools in place to properly monitor. Now, of course, like a ransomware event, that's very visible because you're locked out of your systems. However, when they're trying to maybe take information or exfiltrate data from your network because you have intellectual property, or they're trying to scrub credit card information or other personal identifiable information. They're trying to do that very slowly so they don't raise any suspicion. But eventually there's some telltale signs that you're exposed, and now you're in a situation where you're either paying a ransom or your data is leaked on a public space and you didn't even know. And that's the trigger. And at that point, it's far too late.
So,
Yes.
Okay, how do you actually protect yourself against some of these events? And then the one of the things that obviously we deal with a lot of earlier stage companies that are in the process of development. So some of them will be software companies, some of them are going to be software as a service that actually may interact with large companies. Now, you've got this challenge where you have these large companies that will have their controls and their systems in place, and you have somebody that maybe not the same. How do you actually bridge that gap? Because you could be actually creating weaknesses for somebody else. Want to get into how do you guys deal with that, but firstly, I would really like to know, how do you protect yourself? How do you stop some of this from happening?
I think it's important to understand the mindset of these threat actors, right? You need the intelligence. So you can't stop someone if you don't understand, their techniques. You can't stop someone if you don't have the capabilities. You just can't stop someone if you don't have the team on board. These guys are highly skilled, highly motivated, backed by foreign government resources, and they have a certain agenda, right? If they're coming for you, they're coming for you. Now, for example, if you watch the movie Home Alone 2, right? You got this bad guy, he dresses up like a police officer, and he's scoping out the houses, and he picks this house, right? And he goes in there pretending to be a cop, and he's asking the right questions, and then he's gonna hit that house at some point. So these guys are doing their scanning, their recon, they're doing all their open source intelligence gathering on their targets, executive CEOs. I mean, I could go on with that list. So you got to really get down to capabilities, understanding, and then you need the right team, because bottom line is, some certain threat actors, from the time they land in your environment, they get a foothold, and for them to pivot and get to that point where it's game over for you, it's anywhere from 18 minutes to 4 hours, depending on the threat actor you're dealing with. If you're dealing with Asian, Chinese-sponsored, government-sponsored threat actor, they're after your IP. You will not even know they're in your network. If you're dealing with Russian-sponsored threat actors, you will know, because you'll have that ransomware note. So it all depends on who you're dealing with, your in-house capabilities, your IT. Again, your IT is your family physician. Cybersecurity, brain surgeon, expert specialist, right? So you need the team together to work together to try and stop these guys. So the more resources you have, the better your chances are. Dwayne, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Just go back to your initial question there too, James, like who gets breached. And we see small dentist, doctor, lawyer offices, like small retail, like 1, 2, 3 person type organizations, right up to multiple country, multi-billion-dollar organizations. Right? It runs the gamut. No one is free. That theory of I'm too small, they don't want my, forget about it. That is not a thing, because they know who wants your data. You want your data, right? And they will take your data and they will hold it over your head, and you have two choices, in their eyes, maybe pay the ransom or go out of business potentially, right? So no one is free and clear, just to drive that home. Yeah, and we all the time we see them. They're in the organization, they're sniffing around, they're very surgically taking critical data, trying not to raise awareness on themselves. They kind of fly under the radar, and when we get the case and we're doing the forensic investigation on it, we can see they've been in there for a long time there, and where they're going and what they're taking, and they're not taking everything in the kitchen sink. They're specifically taking the key, financial, personal information stuff that they can hold the most leverage over top of you. Yeah, and we can get into some crazy stories of some extra leverage and stuff that they'll do if maybe you do have good backups. They haven't got a chance to trash those yet, and some do, some don't. So you opt not to pay any sort of ransom demand. Well, they'll go to Plan B, and I've been on calls, with the CEO of an organization. We're kind of discussing the strategy in and around the negotiations of the threat actor, and his cell phone rings. And the threat actor is in his email, real time, reads back the very email that the CEO just sent myself and my team about sort of the next steps. And of course, he's also read the email to his wife and his kids about, the plans for that weekend, et cetera. So it's there's some crazy stuff that takes place, but absolutely no one is free and clear, and they have likely been in for a long period of time. It's unfortunate. Very rarely do we get the call that says, "Hey, Dwayne, my backups have been failing. We're not quite sure why. This Active Directory server is not authenticating people properly. We're not quite sure why. Some just doesn't smell right. Can you jump in?" And when we do, usually they've already got a pretty good foothold by that point. They've been in for weeks or months already. And it's kind of damage control at that point.
So James, you asked a question around how do you protect yourself against this, and it's really kind of a trifecta of people, process, and technology. And we can go into a wide list of technologies that you ought to have in your business to protect yourselves adequately. It's not going to be the end-all be-all, but there's some basics that absolutely need to be in place. The first step is ensuring that you have backups, and not just backups of everything that's in your environment, but cloud-based backup, something that's disconnected from your order of your business effectively. And the reason why that's important is ransomware is targeting backups. And so they encrypt your backup, so you have no choice other than to pay the ransom. In fact, there was this business, professional services organization. They have tremendous amount of files. One of their executive partners requested that the backups be turned off for this organization because it was impeding their ability to work after hours. It's typically when you run your backups is after hours, so why not just turn it off? So they turned it off. 3 weeks later, what they had happen was a ransomware event. All 3 servers were encrypted, and the backups that were locally that were still running were encrypted as well. The cloud backup was toast. They didn't have it anymore. And so they ended up having to pay $150,000 per server to recover that, simply because somebody allowed that server to be, or the backups to be turned off. And it was that simple. So fundamentally, you don't have any chance to go back and recover. And even when you have the ability to recover, that backup file might also be encrypted, or it might be in a vulnerable state, which means you recover that, you could still be recovering the methods that they have already put into that backup so that they can compromise you just over again. So it's very important to have a technique to recover, have a clean room, make sure that server is completely isolated, and there's a whole process around that. But it's that simple. And if you don't have your backups, one thing I want to just make the light of is Life Labs. Massive medical organization, 15 million customer records infiltrated or possibly infiltrated, and they paid the ransom. I don't know, it was multi-millions of dollars. And the reason why most of these large organizations pay ransom is because they don't have the ability to recover fast enough. They haven't tested their backups in a way that you're in a DR scenario, and how fast can you actually recover? And often they have the data, but to get you back up into a production environment can take days, weeks, months in some cases. And that's a fundamental challenge, is you might have backups, but when you need them, can you get them back fast enough?
Can I add a story to that one? Just when you mentioned Life Labs, it triggered one. And a common, people often will back up their financial data and their files and all that kind of jazz, right? But of course, we know, nothing is impenetrable being to compromise. And this was in the US, of course, but a hospital organization, we have the sort of IT network people talk about, and then often there's the OT network, right? And their medical dispensing system was compromised. They like it, which was an outside vendor and stuff. They don't typically would back that up because there's no real data on it, but they were unable to produce medications for all their patients in the hospital. And yeah, they ended up having to pay, but it was a little scrambly to say the least, as they try to get people their meds, to in some cases keep them alive.
Yeah, like, and this is the thing, is it's not just like there's real people, real lives that are at stake on this thing. That how do they get in? Because I've seen, like, even in with us, that you'll get these really strange emails, which the funny thing is that usually we're smart enough to say, well, that's like, that one's not, like, that's just phishing and let's just get rid of it. But there's ones that you'll have somebody that accidentally does click on it, and it's kind of a weakest link thing that once some of these events have taken place, now what do you do? And potentially they don't actually even say anything that they've done this, right? So the things can happen that you're not aware of, or like you said, I didn't like the fact that I can't access, so we're just going to shut down backups, like in the category of you can't fix stupid. So what are some of the things we need to watch out for? And besides backups, what do you guys do? And obviously we're small organizations that don't have the resources to have entire teams that deal with this stuff. So what do you do in that case? We're not in Enbridge, or
yeah, one of the most pervasive attack techniques that is out there is phishing. It's really about targeting people, the people firewall of your organization, and so if they're set on clicking, that's a method in which they get in. The other thing that's against us is the fact that most organizations have not implemented two-factor authentication. And so the challenge is that without two-factor authentication, so something your password, and something you have, such as your cell phone, which has a push notification on it, just in 2021 alone, there was 22 billion passwords leaked to the internet of known passwords that people use. That's about nearly 3 times the population of the planet. And when you consider the fact that most people reuse the same password for multiple things, everyone's been compromised at some level. And there's websites you can go to that you can actually go check and make sure that, hey, your email hasn't been compromised. Just be mindful not putting your password in some of those websites, because that's a way to scrub passwords as well. But I think what's important here is that through a phish, there's the clone kind of phishing where they take your Amazon snapshot. Hey, you got a delivery, click this link, away you go. Or there's some things that are a little bit more targeted, the ones that look like they just came from your CFO or CEO, and they look exactly like it, right down to the company logo on the email. But if you look real carefully, often, actually, I'm going to just share a story. There was this company, and the CFO got an email from the CEO saying, "Hey, I need $150,000 transferred to this account." Everything looked legit. It was not an unreasonable request from the CEO. CFO processed the transaction, no problem. CEO and CFO didn't work in the same building. So about a week later, they had a meeting. CFO asked, "Hey, just wanted to make sure you got that $150,000 transferred to you." The CEO looked at him and said, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" And I can only imagine in that moment, the blood rushing out of the CFO's face when he realized what happened. They went quickly back to the email to look, no, here's the email, you sent it to me. And it was just, instead of an I, it was an L in the domain. And so they actually took over a domain that was very similar to that company's domain and was able to craft an email targeted at that CFO of getting some funds transferred. Simple as that. Unfortunately, that money was transferred out of that account all over the world. They weren't able to recover that money. Thankfully, they were large enough that they could withstand that. But most organizations, think of a startup. $150,000 is a tangible amount of money for most organizations that you can't just, write off.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, what kind of systems you have to put in place. So one of the things that you did mention is like backups to putting backups on the cloud. Now, if you're already just on the cloud, do you need to back up to local? Or do you go reverse ways? You back up off the cloud?
Or to another cloud.
Or to your cloud to cloud. Okay.
Yeah. So one of the aspects is like, say you're in a public cloud, whatever that public cloud is, Google, AWS, Azure, you'd want a backup that's independent of that. Something that's outside that ecosystem. Because if you got the whole cloud that's compromised, now what do you have to turn to? You don't have any backups if it lives within that same entity. So it's vital.
Well, what about if what if you just keep everything on, so like you said, you keep it on SharePoint or someplace that's like, because you're small, so you just have one and that's all we're doing.
James, from a hacker's perspective, you're making my job easier. You're making it very easy for me, right? Ask the experts, right? Bottom line is you need to air gap that backup, you need to encrypt it, and you need to keep it, if it's a Canadian company, keep it in a Canadian cloud, right? With lockdown, right? In an air gap system if possible, or in a cloud, right? Backups for me, I love backups, right? I'm that type of mindset, from a hacker's mindset, where I will sit in your network for months, years. I'll put a backdoor. So yeah, you'll restore from backup. Guess what? It'll re-encrypt everything. That's my level of thinking, right? And then you have the amateurs, obviously, they want to encrypt and they'll take their chances. But yeah, it depends on who you're dealing with and how sophisticated the group is. We can give you a list of things to do to protect from ransomware. However, bottom line is, you definitely need a team. So you need the right individuals to speak to design your security, your backups, and secure it properly with some security frameworks in place so you can defend, protect, and secure from these emerging threats. Now, you mentioned phishing. That is just one attack vector. There are thousands of attack vectors out there. You possibly cannot keep up with what's coming down the fire hose, basically, right? You need an incident response team. You need threat intelligence. You need to understand the cyber kill chain, their tactics, their tools. There's a lot there. So for us and for F12, we've kind of figured out that response is key. So responding. So yes, you can have all the tools and the whole shebang, but responding in 15 minutes with the right people, process, technology is key. So what we've done is we've learned from our, from our incident response team, and we've built a strong security framework backed with our warranty, which is up to $2 million of cover. What that means is we are highly confident that with the layers, the adaptive security and all the layers that goes in with our team behind it, that we will stand behind you in the event something bad happens. And that's the name of the game. The response time is the name of the game.
Okay, because that's what really, when you're talking about smaller organizations, you don't have the team. It is like there may be one person that, like, heaven help you if it's actually me doing it. I don't know how to turn the computers on, so that's not going to really help too much. Although maybe it will help because you just won't have them. But this is the case where I think they do need to, from the sounds of it, they do need to engage outside. Like you're not going to do your own taxes. You're not going to do it. So it sounds like in this area, single point of failure is a real challenge if you're doing these things on your own watch, and then you may or may not survive it. I'm curious about, from your perspective, what are some of the things, like, do they, like you said, they go after, it's either ransom or like they may be state owned, that they're looking after trying to actually get their your IP. Like if it's ransomware, you're going to know right away. If it's IP, this could be a fundamental problem, because you may not actually have anything if it goes into the wrong jurisdiction, where they really just don't care less about patents and so forth. So
I got a good story for this.
yeah, like engage us, Calvin. Tell us tell us about this.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So, and this is often too common. There was this story, one of the CSIS ex operatives shared this story with me, and I thought this was just an incredible story. It was an organization in Canada. They were working on building IP specific to the manufacturing field. And so, they were kind of really under the radar. No one really knows about them, but there was this company that was recruiting. And what they were doing is they were recruiting the top lead scientists in this research firm. And so what they were doing is they were saying, hey, just FYI, we're looking to expand our portfolio. We're offering this type of wage, et cetera, et cetera. And that wage was about 2 times more than what those researchers were making. And so they blasted all of those research scientists, and there's a couple that actually took the hook. Now, what they did was said, "Hey, we have a recruiter that's coming in. They're going to meet you here. We'll set it up. We'll it's going to be great." But closer to the event, what happened is they said, "You know what? Unfortunately, there was a family emergency. We couldn't actually get that person down. Tell you what." Well, our actual lead recruiters in this country, it was Brazil, and they said, we'll pay for a trip for you to come in. We'll pay for everything. Don't worry. And in fact, I know it's out of your way. It's over the weekend. We'll give you another ticket to come down with us. And so that way you have some time. We'll pay for your hotel, et cetera, et cetera. You come in for a couple hours. We'll do an interview. Well, guess what? That person went on that trip. They went down there. And guess what happens when you're in an interview? Well, they were a little gushy about all the things they were doing, all the research that they were doing that was proprietary and probably on the NDA. But they got some competitive advantage on that moment through the social engineering attack. Effectively, there was no job. They wanted to get the competitive intelligence on their intellectual property and get to market quicker. And that's exactly just what happened in this case. And unfortunately, because it was in a different country when this transpired, and the person was forthcoming with the information, there was nothing, no laws were really broken. But that's an example of something pretty sophisticated in terms of a social engineering attack that worked.
It's interesting because somebody just said, wow, if it's too good to be true, it really is. But thing is, there's probably a little bit more to that story, and they did play off on egos and so forth, and greed factors, and if you can actually get it, then hey, like you said, you've got the information, you got what you needed, and well, no one's there's not a heck of a lot you can do about it after that did happen. So
yeah, one of the things that you kind of brought up, and I think it's one of the elements that we actually leverage Cyberclan for, and it's about measurement. When you look at your organization, you cannot know where your gaps are unless you're measuring it. And so coming in, having a security assessment done, we leverage Cyberclan to do red team exercises against us. So a red team exercise is we hire an ethical hacker to come in and use the same techniques that are widely available that the hackers are using to see if they can break into your system. And you can do that on the external side, or we say, you know what, assume that you broke through, maybe somebody clicked that fish link, and now you're in a system. What can you do? Can you break out? Can you laterally move within the organization? Can you get to our crown jewels within our organization? and we can test to make sure that our people, our process, and our technologies are actually living up to what we think they are doing. And so, you know, there's times where there's a gap and you have to go in and make sure that you have to tweak that out, or there's now something that maybe you don't have visibility on. And so this is a way to make sure that you're measuring your risk and knowing where you have those gaps, because if you don't know, it's like the blind leading the blind.
Kidding. You know, it's interesting you say that. So you do the testing, but what about because actually I have not seen this done, and I've been with like really large organizations like Goldman and so forth. And you go, I also don't see now, maybe this is now taking on new meaning, but what about training of the individuals, of getting everybody up to speed with what is cyber, what is going on? Like we're doing this today, but what do you do to protect and bring up to speed? Because I think probably, Richard, you're probably best to talk about this. Maybe education is your best defense if you're actually not totally stupid about what the heck is going on. You can all play part of that protection. What are your thoughts on this?
I think training has to make sense, right? Like, I mean, I zone out after like, 30 minutes of being bored. Like literally you will not get my attention, right? So I need something that is real. It's interesting, and it applies to me. So what that means is when you're doing training, right? If I'm doing a phishing simulation, right? You could do the automated phishing simulation, which is fine. But after a while, I know it's an automated phishing simulation. I know it's a Canada Post phishing email, and I'll just block it, right? And there are different programmers or smart people that will just junk it, the email, right? Automatically, you write a script to put in junk. So it has to be interactive. It has to evolve, and it has to be interesting. So a combination of doing the phishing simulation, but more real to the company, identifying, where people are failing, and then communicating that back effectively to the team and showing them, where they're failing and what they need to do, what they don't need to do. And then education, plus also the controls, right? Because at the end of the day, I can train myself so much, but I also need the controls to filter out 99% of those phishing emails. And then you layer on MFA. And then if there's a very advanced attack from the CFO coming to me saying, do a wire transfer, I need to have some other protocols in place. I can phone in and check, common sense. So there's a lot that goes in. So I think it's a combination of the human firewall. So you have to educate the human firewall, have your controls, test your controls, common sense, ongoing training. And ongoing training has to go hand in hand with emerging threats, right? Because like I said, phishing is one example. Connecting a USB key into your home computer while you're using VPN and connecting to your resources is another example, right, of bad security practice. So just all that combined together will definitely put you in a stronger security posture.
Okay. One element that I would say is so vital, especially in the finance department, is something called segregation of duties. And so, this is a policy or procedure that has to exist in an organization. You think about when you hire somebody, what is the first thing that they often do when you hire somebody? They go update LinkedIn. They say, hey, I'm Gary. I just started an ABC company. I'm the new accounts payable clerk. And so what happens is that now you have some information that's able to be scrubbed from the internet that, hey, there's this new person. We'll call him Gary. And Gary is now, very excited. He's new. He's maybe doesn't have all the policies and procedures that he's been trained on just yet, but he's excited and he's wants to work. And so, an email probably crosses his desk that says, hey, this is, a company you deal with. I need my bank account information changed. We just changed banks. Please update the record in the ERP system. Gary does that change, no problem. Away you go. Maybe a few weeks go by, and suddenly that same company calls back and says, Gary, why haven't you paid any of our invoices? And Gary says, well, I mean, looks in. Oh, just a couple of weeks ago, we changed your bank information. I did it, in fact. I didn't change it. We've been using the same bank for 20 years. What do you mean? Well, guess what? Gary made a mistake. He didn't check the identity of that individual through that email. Didn't call him back. And just, in fact, in Alberta, we had this happen several years ago with the Grant MacEwan University. They had millions of dollars that left that organization because of that exact same thing, where bank information was changed without making sure, verifying the identity of that individual, and that millions of dollars left that organization. And so, you know, cybersecurity in general is not just one thing. And I think that's probably the picture that we're painting here, is it's a collection of aspects that need to be working in tandem. And so when you said earlier at the start of this call, it was like, you know, there's organizations that have been hacked and have yet to be hacked. Well, we certainly have a mountain against us in terms of, you know, the people, the training, the technology, the processes, and all of those kind of lend up or add up into an aspect that we need trusted individuals that are helping organizations through this. It is not, you can't just wing it. You need professionals that only do this. You know, companies like Cyberclan, companies like F12, that this is all we live and breathe. It's about keeping clients safe and secure. And it's, you know, it's a dangerous world, and it's only getting worse. And based on what I'm seeing in the SMB space, it is awful. Like we just don't even have the fundamental education to train people on what you need, the basics, and that's the gap.
Okay, Calvin. So that's a good segue into the next. So anybody that wants to add questions to our guys, please put them into the Q&A, and we'll address it there. A quick question: are your PCs, is cloud backup more secure than a PC?
I'm not sure what they mean by PC. Can I just touch on the whole cloud application?
Yeah, and then what I would like to do to wrap up, what I'd like to do is each of you give us one story that's got what's the key message that each of you want to leave for our audience. So let's have some fun with that. But I think what the question was is, are you more secure backing up to the cloud than you are backing up on your own PC? And I don't know that really is.
Well, what I hear lots, just to share lots, you know, lots of organizations use SaaS applications and stuff, right? And there's a general feeling that they're more secure in that aspect, and that depending on how they use it, they may be acting. But we see a lot, not uncommon, whether you Workday, Cloud ADP, whatever, people will pull reports, extract dumps, whatever, and pull them down to their local file server. And guess what gets stolen, right? That's where they don't necessarily need to go to the cloud, because you just made their life easy for them. You pull down the last year's, you know, employee records with everybody's social insurance numbers and stuff all in a nice little Excel spreadsheet for them, and that gets stolen and leveraged. So just be mindful in the cloud space, you know, just to touch quickly as well, you know, in the intellectual property conversation, you know, we've had cases where a large software development company, all their stuff is done in AWS, got compromised. We had to, you know, do an investigation stuff within their AWS infrastructure. You know, their code got looked through, looking for their biggest fear was they were going to be the next SolarWinds and victim of a supply chain attack, sort of thing, right? So, yeah. Anyway, to go back to your question there, sorry, before I ramble on too much. Good story. I guess two things that I just got the floor here. Two things. In this, I think in the clientele that's probably watching, maybe smaller market type stuff, a very common practice is to use some outside IT support, right? Because they don't have internal IT. I will tell you that is an extremely common method of a breach for clients. We see it all the time where the MSP got breached and then all of their clients consequently got breached. We see it a lot. Now, of course, the poor guy is in the client, like, well, how am I supposed to, like, those are the guys that I trust. What am I supposed to do about it? And the answer is, to Richard's point earlier, you need your general surgeon or your general practitioner, but you also need the surgeon as well. It's extremely common. A specific story, just to and wrap it up. In a smaller space, I'll stick to a smaller story. We had a client came through as a small law office. They did get hit with ransomware in this particular one. They had good backups. They were, no, we don't need, we can restore fine and dandy. No problem. We're not going to pay it. Screw you guys. That threat actor reached out to the opposing counsel and offered to sell them their basically inside secrets to the opposing counsel, because the people that they actually breached were not going to pay them. So these are the kinds of crazy things that take place in this space. So I don't know, I'll let the others share.
Okay. That's pretty,
Calvin, I'll let you go.
that's actually not bad as far as like, if you go, hey, there's more than one way of skinning the cat. Obviously, I want to get paid. I'm going to sell it to somebody else then.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's just the challenge, right? Is they got the data, they're going to ransom you and still sell your data. So it's like, oh my gosh, you're getting, and then if you pay, guess what they're going to do? You're a repeat customer. We're going to get you again, because often those businesses won't actually mature enough, and there's still the issue of how they got in will still be how they got in. They may get you in another couple months. So, the challenge that I see is that if we keep paying the ransom, and sometimes that's the only alternative, like that's the only option you have. But if we keep paying, then we're going to just keep having this cycle go forward over and over again. So we got to stop, but we can only stop if we have the right tools and process and technology in place to thwart these types of things. So, what I wanted to kind of maybe just end on is, there's a few things that you ought to be doing in your organization immediately. One, make sure you have offsite backups. Make sure that you have MFA on anything and everything that's externally.
MFA? Sorry.
That's multi-factor authentication. So
okay.
That's ensuring that it's not just a password to get into a system. It's also a code that you typically have on your personal device, or maybe it's a little token that's recycling. Okay. Yeah, so that's it's an important aspect, and make sure you do that on everything that can be externally accessible. So every cloud app, every point of entry into your organization. Security awareness and phish testing. Testing your people is vital. I know it has to be engaging, to Richard's earlier point, but you have to test your people to know the ones that are prone to click. Because often those people, those clickers, are the ones that will continuously click. And so maybe the option is they don't get a computer because they're that risky to the organization. Sometimes you have to take that step. I kid you not.
Hey, I've been trying to turn this thing on. It's a book. Well, no. Just keep pressing that.
Yeah, okay. There's a power button, honest. The other approach, and this is a whole nother segment, but is to look at endpoint protection that is zero trust. Zero trust is effectively something that makes sure that it's not just definitions like your normal antivirus. It says only the things that are known good are allowed to run in my computer. It's just another method ensuring that you're protected. And the last thing I would just want to leave on is make sure that you're measuring your risk. If you're not measuring your risk, you don't know if your tools, your process, or your people are working. And you might think that you put in the latest, greatest antivirus, and that's going to protect you, only to realize that that's not going to protect you if you get yourself tested. And so having the illusion that you're protected is probably just as dangerous of not having any protection at all. Richard, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, if you go back 10 years, the story was, hey, I got a firewall, I'm safe. Now the story's changed. Firewall is not going to save you. AV antivirus is not good enough. So things are changing, right? That's the bottom line. So that's the message. That's the first message. Second point is I once reached out a Canadian lawyer, top Canadian lawyer, and go, how do I protect my data from a legal perspective? His answer was just don't share it. Now, what does that mean? Just don't share it, right? So that's the answer he gave me, and I had to figure it out. But from backups and storage, my opinion is that, you know, I am comfortable storing data in a Canadian cloud as long as I hold the encryption keys and I know that provider has met the security requirements, but I hold the keys. In any case, best practice is if you don't need the data, just delete it. Why keep extra data? That's what I would do from a data backup. And if you further want, you could back up data onto an encrypted drive and put it in a bank vault, TD RBC vault, and just leave it there. But again, you got to ensure that the data you are doing the backup is clean data. It's not backdoored, or because if you ever restore it, you know, you'll get encrypted again, depending on who you're dealing with. So those are my thoughts there. In terms of like Calvin said, right? You need to add in the layers. So, you know, endpoint protection, EDR. We've seen it all. You know, you can go buy the Ferrari, but if you don't know how to drive it, or you know, if you don't know the basics of how to identify certain things, and so it all has to work together. So, you know, we're a team here with F12, and we're happy to work with you to meet your needs. We know you have a budget. We know, you know, you have concerns, and we'll work within that framework to keep you secure. My last take is, if a not-for-profit in Halifax can afford us, you should be able to afford us. So.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, Richard, I appreciate that. And that was kind of the point that I really wanted to make to everybody as we're drawing to the end here, is that it is a team. You know, we're raising a lot of early stage companies. It takes a village, and absolutely you need to bring in the experts and make sure that you're not at risk, because I think it also goes to your credibility and your reputation. You don't want to ever have, as you're working with the larger companies, you want to be seen as, you know, what's going on, and you guys can help work through any certifications that companies need to do, make sure that they know what's coming, make sure how they, because you work on both sides, so you actually understand that. So we did have a question about, is it, if you're joining a company, should you be looking at how the company actually operates in the cyberspace? And I think the answer is pretty obvious, that it's key to all of our futures to make sure that we are part of the solution and not just part of the problem. So I probably would leave it at that, and then say, could you please make sure you share with us the contact information so everybody here knows how to get a hold of you. And I've got to thank you guys for sharing your backgrounds. This has been incredibly important, and I know it's about the survivability and the future prospects of all the companies we work with. So incredibly helpful. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Stephen, and because I think we're coming to the top of the hour.
Yeah, thank you very much, James. And thank you, Calvin, Dwayne, and Richard. Again, it's hard being an entrepreneur. You got to do all the right things, but you also got to not do the wrong things. And earlier, I think it was Richard, you said, you know, you guys apply common sense. Do you know somebody who trains common sense? Is that like service? Or
it's uncommon. It's uncommon sense.
Because I think I see that sorely lacking in a number of areas. So if you're working on that on the side, let me know, because that's something we can do. Gentlemen, thank you very much for this. Everybody in the audience, as always, thank you for your comments and questions. I hope you found this valuable. We will be back next month talking about how to take your business, obviously once it's secure and you got that wonderful air gap in your data backups, how to go into the United States, how to structure your business there. So there's some tax, there's some legal, there's all sorts of considerations there. Again, lots to know. We're bringing the experts on a monthly basis. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.